Welcome everybody to Dr. Zoo. A little bit of a sound change today. Yes, it's just tweaking a little bit more and more because we've got some brand new headphones. Is everybody out there listening and can hear Doctor Who okay? Just a little thumbs up out there, but here we are, Dr. Zoo, 13th of April. 2026, loud and clear. That's fantastic news. Well, here we are. They played that song, got a feeling, because I got a feeling that April is going to be massive. We are in box seat on all fronts. Things are collapsing around us, people, but Zucoins plus Zutopia going to turn that into a powerhouse. This instant transactional stuff, a little bit more testing we've been doing behind the scenes. We just haven't been sitting idle. The gang down there in Melbourne been doing a marvellous job, accelerating the testing also on Zucaz. That is going to be the sister powerhouse company as well, let me tell you that. That's better than I've ever seen. And then, of course, you've got the SplitChain and the work that the great man, Robert Novak, is doing. Now, we had a bit of excitement last week. Episode 62 is going to go as a standout moment in the history of Dr. Zoo, one way or the other. Feel like Nostradamus. Predict a lot of things. There's a lot on the website, by the way, that you should go back because there hasn't been too many things that Dr. Zoo has expressed over the journey that have been ticking some boxes and happening on a number of fronts, but go and revisit. If you get some spare time or a bit of boredom, there is Zoo AI articles that are on the website. You can also make sure that on this current page where you've got the live Dr. Zoo, that's Dr. Zoo is live, I can assure you. Maybe he's not. Maybe this particular doctor today is AI. I mean, what a crazy world we're in. So let's just see how that pans out in the future. But there is also then the repeat shows that you can listen to or get a summary. There is truckloads of information. The most important bit of information is as we get closer and closer to the end of this month, because it is going to be unbelievable. You know, I can recall we had a few people that had a bit of backlash on episode 62, but you know, look, everybody gets to express views, and what Dr. Zoo tends to do is tries to be as factually correct as possible and introduce that thought bubble into people's heads and get you thinking. We want people to think big, think the vision. In fact, I was going to play the little ad that was created by my great hero Steve Jobs, which is the Crazy Ones. Now, I don't know whether you've seen it, but you can look it up. It's a beauty. It's an absolute cracker, and it's the crazy ones that turn things around and make this world into something special. I think Dr. Zoo is really crazy. He's out there. What you see, what you hear is what you get. Now, didn't it turn around, interestingly, on the weekend? What a weekend we got ourselves into. The great Donald, Iran, all that sort of stuff. And we talked about it in the context of how it affects Zucoins and Zutopia. And basically, it's created a bit of a quiet time for our marketing in those jurisdictions. Now, some people got upset and worked up and carried on and couldn't see the connection, but it's clearly there. So, over the weekend, hate to say it, but Dr. Zoo was on the money. Look at what's happened. Now, aside from there being a complete screw-up in the friction between Iran and the US of A, Israel, of course, the impact is just starting to accelerate. And I'm glad, absolutely thrilled, that we have a set of products that can pivot, move, readjust, realign, and set itself up for some powerful stuff. Remember, you don't need massive numbers for us to get some of that real substance into not only the short-term trading, but also the long-term visions. And basically we have two lots of people, really. We have the short-term, quite rightly, early adopters. And I say, even though the product's been, 7 years in the making, that's 50% less time than the great Satoshi, and that's going down a cliff pretty quick with all the bits and pieces that are coming out of the woodwork on Bitcoin and the problems now facing Ethereum and Solana's under the pump. List goes on. But you put that to one side, and it's been a very the old turtle and the hare. We know how that story panned out, and that's where we sit, everybody, because you've got one big group that quite likely want to see some action, see some price, and the price will take care of itself. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's a free market. Your fellow Zucoin holders will dictate and determine what happens in the short term on price. And look, I don't know how you describe some of them, because if you've come this far, you've crossed the barriers of pain, and then if you happen to, or you do take a profit and you've been fortunate enough to get some low priced coins and you sell out, well, good luck to you. That's fantastic. Everybody can in that instance, take a profit. Wonderful. I'm talking about when we fire the engines up and all cylinders on Zutopia. It's going to happen fast, quick and fast, because the nature of that exchange or that trading marketplace is significant in now that we've locked down the ability for instant transfers off exchange. And people, you don't see the behind the scenes, but certainly there's a big and a lot of financial resources ploughed into making sure we can stay to the core business of being on the good side of the regulatory issues with these new changes that have come into effect. And we noticed in the last week that Coinbase has now got its AFSL license, and Paid Up has now got an AFSL license, and there's quite a few coming out of the woodwork. But good old Zutopia, which is structured deliberately not to play with people's crypto or finances in terms of the fiat transfers, and you've seen how that works, is going to pay huge rewards in the long term, because it doesn't have that burden of what is required to meet those compliances. Now, certainly Stripe will meet it. That's its cost, but it makes money from the traders, that is you, the early adopters and others that come in. But it's not a centralised problem for Zutopia to be having that burden. And that burden is significant, people. You mightn't think much of it, but it can add up into the millions and millions, which comes out of poor old Dr. Zoo's back pocket. And that might be okay for some people, but that's a heavy burden, and that's why we talk about people like the great man Elon Musk. He wants to go global with his X money, and he can have all those sort of global headaches being a centralised corporation X, and as a result of that, he's governed by massive international laws on all levels, and that comes at a huge cost. Now, generally people don't give a stuff about that, but some poor bugger's got to wear it. Now, he's got a few bob in the tin. Don't worry about poor old Elon, but he does borrow a lot, goes on margin and fluctuates with share prices, and every time there's another boat that gets sunk over there in the Strait of Hormuz or gets blocked and the share markets start to get smashed, that affects his position, and that affects what can happen as to how people benefit from his products. But we don't have that problem, and that's why we were flagging the impact globally that can occur as a result of these external factors. Now, some people didn't believe me. They thought, no, Dr. Zoo, he's waffling on, and what's he want to introduce that for, and that's going to ruffle a few feathers and all the rest of it. Well, it does ruffle feathers because you've got to prepare as a risk assessment. Now, we're not suggesting that the office of Dr. Zoo is running a team of Nostradamuses here, but you can certainly pinpoint and isolate issues that will impact across all sectors. And let's just have a look in the last 48 hours, people. And it does go back earlier in the month, but particularly the last 48 hours. Now, the boys all get together They go over there to Pakistan and they start these peace negotiations, and we talked about in episode 62 there won't be any peace. It's just nonsense. It cannot happen, and you can revisit 62 to get a handle on that. That's factually based material. It's not some personalised view of Dr. Zoo. It's just what's in front of us factually, and you can do it and look it up yourself. But those 21 hours the boys got together, imagine how many drinks they'd have in that time. Sitting down, whether the world's going to vaporise or not, or particularly those in the Middle East. And after 21 hours, it hits a brick wall. Boom. The old boom shakalaka. USA can't get agreement, Iran, and then it starts. Then we start the threats and away we go again. But you say to yourself, well, so what? That's over there. You know, no one cares. But we do care because the Zucoin risk assessment was certainly part and parcel of our global marketing because of that particular region and sector was powerful. It's powerful because of the financial institutions, powerful because of the adoption of crypto in that space, particularly Dubai. And we've had to reassess. We've had to say, well, where is all this shit fight going? It's going to the point that we don't want to risk anything. And what happened? Well, let's just have a look. CZ. Does anybody know CZ? CZ's our great man. He was a bit naughty there in the early days. He started out with not a very transparent exchange called Binance. He's turned it into an international powerhouse. I think I saw over the weekend Binance churned over $5.9 billion in one 24-hour session, which is a lot of money. I mean, we'd love to see Zutopia do that. It'd be unbelievable. Be money coming out of our ears if that's the case. Oh, well, wait a minute. We've got Fancy Fan, yawn, I'm out. Well, that is exactly how Dr. Zoo operates. Dr. Zoo operates, it's a free world and free market, and we wish you nice Fancy Fan for a bit of a sleepy. You're obviously tired, you've had a big weekend worrying about the Iran situation, and you're now going to have a little nap. And that's the beauty. You can switch off and on whenever you like. We love it. What Fancy Fan's going to miss out on, though, is that it's not just Zucoins and Zutopia concerned about the situation of what evolved, but of what I was moving into. On the weekend, CZ, who's worth billions, tens if not $100 billion in Binance, said it's all too hard in the Middle East, and Binance offered over the weekend that 1,000 of its employees, UAE-based employees, which is 20% of its global workforce, think about that, are going to relocate to offices in Hong Kong, Tokyo, Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok. Can you believe that? If there was concern, imagine if you had some trading over there and you couldn't get out because you don't want to take notice of what's happening. Now that's just Binance. That's just Binance that's contracting because of that region, which has some of the biggest dollar spends in the world. Well, magnificent creatures out. Thank you very much for your participation, and we certainly welcomed you being on board for 15 minutes. And Dr. Zoo really loves that approach, and as I said, it's probably a good time because you're not used to the daylight saving, so you've probably lost an hour, which you've got to have a little bit of a nap, and that's awesome. You put your heads on your little pillow, and we'll do all the hard work and the heavy lifting while you guys have a little resty, which is fantastic. Now, other companies that got smashed in the recent 48 hours or less, we have Amazon. It's adjusting its operations in Abu Dhabi, contracting on its fulfillment centres and support staff in these areas. Nvidia, the big massive chip producer, gone, closed its Dubai office and shifted its employees to remote working. Google is now assisting its employees out of Dubai into the regional guidance programs that it has outside. But it doesn't end there. That's just a couple of the crypto and e-commerce companies. The ramifications are now affecting Citigroup. It's evacuated its offices in Dubai, asking all staff to work remotely. Standard Charter, it's evacuated its Dubai offices. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley is now decided to get people out and about and work remotely. And these are companies that we're probably taking some amazing lessons from the great Jacinta Allen. And maybe that's where she, her skill set has come into play in preparation for things like this. So you get Jacinta Allen, and wants everybody to work from home, and she's making preparations for things that have happened in the Middle East that could work for Victoria. So they're all looking to work from home. We've got HSBC closed down its branches in Qatar with adjustments in its Gulf offices. One of the biggest hedge fund managers in Millennium Management is relocating all its Dubai-based employees and moving them to global sites, including Jersey. Very limited presence in the UAE. Now, this is decimating these places, and it validates and vindicates Dr. Zhu's position was raised last week. But it doesn't end there. It gets even better. Even the specialists are starting to cack themselves. We've got PwC, one of my old firms, closed offices across West Asia, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE and Kuwait. Deloitte's decided to evacuate its offices in Dubai. KPMG has now got all the evacuations of its staff from Gulf locations, including Dubai and Doha. McKinsey & Co. is offering free charter flights for its consultants to leave Dubai rather than facing personal risks. And just for good measure, Bloomberg has decided, it's even as a media outlet, it's getting a bit hot under the collar there, and they'll reassess and get their staff moving on the way. So that's the core of some of the corporates that have taken the Zucoin Dr. Zhu approach, which is fantastic for us because we have such a massive marketing opportunity, people. We don't care where it is. We can contract, we can realign, we can pivot to other jurisdictions, and we've had that in play for some time. It's been on the website for a long, long time because guess what? You dumb down the product, you make it simple, you put in play the ability for mass adoption, and you know what? You get all sorts of mums and dads and people as our strategic market coming into play in countries you wouldn't even think of, but have got massive databases. This is why there's a huge opportunity for us with what we're doing through the United States of America, because we've got the ability to distribute, lock and load, and get it out. And you don't want I've said it from earlier in the piece, one of the lessons of the 1980s, when everybody got absolutely gassed and torched with the share market crash, particularly in 1987, got rid of a lot of tax problems, but it absolutely burnt to a crisp people in that market. And it could happen again. History's a wonderful thing. Be prepared. Now, one of the things from that lesson is don't rely on the heavyweights initially. You don't want the major players and the financial institutions because they torture you. If someone came in as a big corporate on the first day of Zutopia, and the worst thing that could happen is they buy in one big lock, stock and barrel $100 million worth of Zucoins. Now that might be good in a very, very short-term instance, but it has massive ramifications because they're the first ones to jump ship. You know how all those little crazies went off on the Titanic? You know, the poor buggers down there in the bottom of the ship got stuck, and those up top got the boats and the life jackets. That's the analogy of how you're left high and dry when you start to play in the big boys game with the institutional players. That's why they're dumping stuff like Bitcoin and they short sell. And you can see that now with the big shit fight that's happening between the great Justin Sun and World Liberty Finance. Now, I raised, just before we go on to that, because that's another interesting topic that I want to touch on, because that's about how you can see, well, nearly 98% of the value of that particular coin, the WLFI coin, disappear, and pretty well caused an enormous ruckus over the weekend as well. I don't know what's connected to the boys playing games with the Iranian thing, because they're buying and selling and short selling. You know, if you look at that and you say, wow, the big players are a problem. They've always been a problem. They're the first ones to get the life jackets. But if you've got, which we have the capacity, people, because you've taken the time as an early adopter to work through the way in which we wanted this system to work, and that's flexibility in terms of the quickness that you get a wallet, the quickness of the transactions, the viral peer-to-peer, the two-factor authentication. It's the only crypto in the world that does that. You know, people send things out and it goes into the shitter because they've got the wrong addresses and all the rest of it. We don't do that. You've got the two-factor between the sender and receiver. You've got the fractionalization, another world first. You've got only caching on the nodes. That means you can have your little node running and you don't care about the Middle East because you've got one node, as I said the other day, sitting over there, and all of a sudden they're running a node for $105 a month because they're going to look after us. But more importantly, the mums and dads and the people that come on board for smaller chunks of Zucoins in the tens, if not hundreds of millions, which you've got the capacity for the system to handle. That's important. Handling the capacity, which it can do with the caching mechanism. There's a finite life to storing every bit of data that the planet has to offer. It gets a bit ugly. It gets a bit expensive. I mean, Chris Bowen wouldn't be thrilled listening to Dr. Zu today to say that the AI databases and the extraordinary energy consumptions of Bitcoin is going to mess up his plans on renewable energies, because all of a sudden we've got no diesel and we can't dig anything out of the ground, and he wasn't having any risk assessments of Australia's position because of a potential Middle East problem. It's been going on for 47 years, so we've had plenty of time to sort that out. Plenty of time. But they didn't. So we're in this little, he's waiting on a boatload of some diesel to cover us for another 20 days. Can you believe it? And what about, oh look, how good was that today? The Minister of Dribble, can't even think of a name. Anyway, the Minister of Dribble came out today and she said there's some new $3 million ads from the government that are going to save the country and reduce the amount of fuel we use, because we're all going to be together, like we were together in COVID, and like we did all the hard things during COVID, locked ourselves up and all that sort of stuff. But she said, guess what's going to save the Australian fuel consumption? Taking the roof racks off your car. Oh my goodness, the friction. Now, I did physics. Dr. Zu did physics. And I can assure you that, yes, there is a bit of friction, but what she doesn't know is that you can reduce that friction if you drive your car in reverse down the highway. If you drive it in reverse, there should be less friction. Now, we could test that. We could have some people out on the highway driving in reverse with their roof racks on to prove that there is less consumption of fuel, unleaded or diesel. Can you believe that? So she wants everybody to take the roof racks off. Take the roof racks off. Now, in what part of some wet dream do these people think of this stuff? Instead of the globalised position and the risk assessment, we were one of the great producers of oil and energy in history. And suddenly it's gone. And we still haven't saved the trees because we got new renewable energy power lines going through, which is going to be massive. We kill all the forests, so there goes Bob Brown's party. All the koalas and all the little things that we had and the birds and all that, because we've got to now have renewables that accommodate the problem we've now got with no fuel, because we don't want to expand our brain capacity to think about the big picture. Now, Dr. Zoo's not suggesting his brain is any bigger than anybody else's, but in 2018, the brain capacity was driven by creating a protocol that could tick the boxes, compete with and improve the outcomes after many, many years of global payment transfers and things through the old easy bonds, and arrived at where we are today. And one of the biggest things that's so exciting is that the mums and dads can get involved with a small fraction. You don't need money, you don't need many, small few dollars. The more coins that are absorbed, the inclination is that if you've got 100 million people buying 10 coins or less, they're less inclined to become a silly seller, because you're accumulating. Accumulation and demand fits the bill for the formula that I talk about called quantity theory of money. I think we've got one person in the entire family of Zucoin holders that's actually applied, I'll mention it, Chris, the formula to the true mathematics of increasing demand. Yeah, you're quite right. We do have a zoo dog in the background. There's a bit of action going on out there. Not happy with his position in life. No, keeping away all of the potential... there you go. Listen, little fella. He's not happy. Now, that comes back to the stay to the plan, which is what's happening. Keep pumping it out, and we will accelerate post Zutopia, because we're in a position that we can be picky and choosy as and when we see fit of our markets, which is what we're doing. And that includes countries through Africa, countries in South America, Europe, Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, all those countries, South Korea, all of those places can have an opportunity of easily being participants in the Zucoin long-term vision. And as I said, you can really sum up that you end up with two classes of people. It's not that there's good or bad, it's just that you've got obviously people that come in and want the quick kill, which is fine, and they take a position. And then all of a sudden, you've got the longer term, which is all about utility and productivity. And away you go. Now, we've got a couple of questions there. What about some more information on how tax implications work with Zutopia and Coinly and whatnot? Well, we're not giving tax advice, but we have had some snippets of information. You're best to get that from your accountant, because each person's circumstances is different. For example, capital gains tax would apply, and if you've held them, which most of our adopters have, so there should be a bit of a tax break there, but just pay the 24 cents in the dollar, be done with it as a capital gain. That's a pretty attractive rate, and that's applying obviously if you're in a company or individual status as a result of where the coins are held. But we do have many people that have got them in super funds, which means there's a different kettle of fish there, because you've got the different thresholds and rules that apply. Obviously, you've got to make sure your fund can take up digital assets in the first instance. Most of them can. So that strategy depends on that. And then, of course, we've talked about, and as far as I'm well aware, you've got the ability that the objective really is to get as much adoption by merchants And the more and more merchants globally, both online, that is e-commerce businesses, as well as bricks and mortar, which is why the Zucas is designed for that, the more and more merchants, it means you can directly exchange your Zucoins at whatever the fair value is at the time of trading, which is a live feed that had come in from Zutopia, because that's just in the free market. It could be low, it might be 50 cents, it might be $500. So that price can be a live feed to the merchant. And if you happen to directly pay, in Australian law at least, for those goods less than $10,000, there is no tax payable. So that's an example of goods and services. So you might have a lovely restaurant meal, or buy some new tyres, or the merchant might decide that you've been a good boy or girl because you've taken the roof racks off and you get a discount on your fuel. Then that sort of would be the advantage of using crypto, in this instance Zucoins direct, because we have instant transferability. The merchant pays no fees and charges, and there is no reversal risk from those naughty people that pretend they didn't do the transaction, which is where the high risk comes about with the likes of Dr. Zoo getting involved in setting up this process in the first place. Only to help everybody, of course. But the chargebacks and things has been a big thing that we solved in the original soft launch. Most people have forgotten about that, but that was quite a crucial part of the journey. Most people don't give a stuff really, because it doesn't affect their lives. But if you want to do it properly, and what's what we've done, the 3DS and the team worked brilliantly with Zutopia, then that overcomes the problems that we're experiencing. Plus, transaction certainty is crucial, absolutely crucial, to make sure that if somebody is selling their Zucoins, it's going to the designated correct receiver. And if you're getting paid, there's a pre-authorization, and that pre-authorization is going directly to the seller. That's how that works. Now, that's where the problems are mounting up globally. Exactly what Dr. Zoo had said some time ago. Dr. Zoo got heavily criticised back then for, why don't we just list on this exchange or that exchange? What a great idea. But there was uncertainty as to the risk assessment that we did, based in terms of on and off ramps and getting money out, or leaving it in Latvia or Cayman Islands or one of these places, and you get stuck because your money gets stuck or your coins get stuck, and you've got no ability to get it out, especially if you've come this far and you end up with a few $1 million, and then you get some dimwit in exchange saying we're not releasing those funds or money. And that's when the buttons were pressed to solve those problems, which is Zutopia. And that's to maximise the certainty and security as much as possible, so that you can trade and you can get your funds, because Dr. Zoo's in the same boat. No good becoming, getting all this money and getting to $1,000 a coin and buying the Gulfstream and waiting to pay Gulfstream the $80 million and it's stuck on some exchange because they won't release it. How bad would that be? Plane sitting on the tarmac and can't be funded. So that's the criticism at the time, was pretty heavy and extensive. Dr. Zoo lost $1 million on that with all those contracts, but it's the best outcome ever. Massive. Zutopia holds the prospects of being a powerhouse, not just because you get all excited and you see the ability of what the coins will trade in the market, and obviously the formula Q, quantity theory of money that kicks into gear, and all of a sudden there's a sense of urgency and wanting to bring across people to take up Zucoins or wallets, but because it has the capacity to lock and load with additional tokenization on Zutopia. And I know you don't want to get your heads on this, but you've got to think down the road. If you're getting direct benefits from merchants and they've tokenized those rewards or benefits, and I've talked about this before, it might be as humble as a $10 tokenized real cash value, token value in a cup of coffee, you can either redeem that directly with the merchant, or you can put it on Zutopia to trade. And other lazy people that didn't get the benefit of that token because they don't have that merchant as their favourite, or they didn't go hunting for it. Remember the old hunt and collect? The old Pokemon Go on steroids, that's what Zukaz is all about. Then you get the benefit of trading. It creates another industry. You also get the benefit of creating your own tokens through tokenization, because the cost is not the same as what it is with what's required with Ethereum and those databases. But more importantly, it's market-free, flexible, that you get paid out or you transfer your tokens or Zucoins off exchange without any custodial ownership. Now, I don't know whether you saw it sort of got sidelined a little bit over the weekend because the Iranians were running around with 300 people trying to work out how to block the Strait of Hormuz, which is fantastic. But it sort of got sidelined, the news about Justin's son, S-U-N, and his little stoush with World Liberty Financial. Now, for those that aren't across it, this is a classic case where the shit has hit the fan because of no forward thinking, no basic risk assessment in the long-term picture of things, and just run off half-cocked and hopefully things will settle. Now, Justin Sun is the founder of Tron. He is a billionaire. World Liberty Financial, which is the WLFI coin, is what was backed and going to be a new world domination of crypto transferability, backed by the Trump family. Now, this has blown up big time in the last 48 hours. Now, what began as a simple token blacklisting incident in September 2025 is now escalating into possibly another major serious litigation between the two parties. Now, just so you're aware, because, people can't see the relevance to Zucoins and things, but the relevance, bottom line in this story, is that you do not want anybody centrally controlling anything you have. I don't care who it is. You want sovereign control. You want the ability to dictate and make the call. Even in Zukaz's world, you make the shots on who you want to deal with, what merchant, what products, what you want to receive notifications on. You don't want the dribble coming through from the great startups that are now built empires like Google and Instagram and Facebook and so on. Facebook. Now there's a interesting little kettle of fish. They were a bit naughty the other day. They had some of these groups who run around promoting Zucoins in scams. But we shut them down, people. We pulled the trigger on our trademarks and told Facebook, don't be naughty. Get rid of them. Don't be naughty. So, we said to them, be careful. And we pulled the pin on our legal trademarks. And that got rid of those Facebook pages and dribble. The old trolls and AI. Look, we've got an article on that. It's just social media is just a train wreck. And then once you get into an argument with them, people start accusing you of carrying on. But you get these anonymous little heroes carrying on. Anyway, that's for another day. That's another example. But back to the story, because it's important about how these things are imploding around us, which gives us fresh air and oxygen to take them on, because of the product. What we have is sensational. It is spectacular, people. Just go and do a transaction now. Forget about all the ups and downs that you're worrying about your price. Just get out there and do a transaction for a fraction and sit back and think, God almighty, how good is this? I can upload a wallet. I can back it up. Don't forget to back up. I can back it up. I can put it on a USB. It's safe and sound. Or I can transfer a fraction to 32 decimals. And boom. There is the trade with no fees and transfers. Unlike what's been going on with these clowns, particularly what's happened with Justin Sun and Trump's World Liberty Finance. Now, in 2023, the SEC, and they're in the thick of all this taking on people, and remember, we've had lots and lots of money spent on legals over the journey to make sure that we are compliant with US regulations, which are pretty onerous, people. If you don't tick that box, you don't get to play in the American pool at all with the big fish in your crypto product, because you've got to deal with the states, you have got to deal with federal legislation. It is a nightmare. But good old humble Zucoins, the way it's structured and what it's done is magnificent, because it is fully compliant, but at the same time it is decentralised, true to what poor old Satoshi can and never will be able to achieve. In fact, if you're out there, Satoshi, they're suggesting it's Adam Back. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't think Adam Back, Dr. Zoo doesn't believe Adam Back is the man, because we have our own analysis that shows otherwise, that he's not the man that wrote the white paper. Happy to be proven wrong, Adam. Give us a call, Adam, but we don't think you are Satoshi. Anyway, back to Tron. In 2023, Justin was a bit of a naughty boy, and he was accused, the allegations, of having unregistered security offerings of his coins, BitTorrents and Tronex. He was accused of fraudulent market manipulation with wash trading, allegedly bought and sold them to rapidly create fake trading volumes and prices, which is what the exchanges were doing. This is what's been going on. This is what got Dr. Zoo all worked up about this sort of crap going on, and why Zutopia was created. Put the power back in the hands of the traders directly who own their coins. And then there was undisclosed celebrity touting, that the companies paid celebrities like Lindsay Lohan and Jake Paul to promote the coins, that they were making these things without revealing they were getting compensated, which is naughty, very naughty indeed. Now, that was going to restrict his activities, but then, miraculously, Sun became an early backer of the World Liberty Financial coin in 2024. And you know in 2024 what was happening, don't we? Yes, we do. The great man became President of the United States of America, and it turns out that Justin Sun invested $90 million in these World Liberty Finance tokens, related Trump-linked assets. He was the biggest known outsider. Now, once Donald took office in 2025, you wouldn't believe it, out of nowhere, the SEC paused the fraud case against Sun and found a resolution. And on the 5th of March 2026, there was a settled case where Justin Sun and his controlled company paid a $10 million penalty with no admission of wrongdoing, and the matter walked away, whilst the World Liberty Financial coin banked between $75 and $90 million from Justice Sun. Now, Sun denies there was any naughtiness going on, and he just says it was a quid pro quo, calling the original cases meritless anyway. But fast forward to the weekend. Now, this is what happened. And this is fascinating, because this could have happened to anybody that's with a centralised body, with a centralised coin, in the current world climate, and the pressure that's on to maintain liquidity, which is what we've been on about and banging on about the Middle East issue. That's the relevance. We're not caught up in this. He decided that some wallets would be linked and began moving the tokens that he held in that WLFI coin. Now, initially this was worth about 175 million. But then all of a sudden, the coin value crashed 83%, literally overnight. And he was trying to suggest that this was to stop market manipulation or breaches of investment agreements. Now, guess what? All his coins and money transfers were frozen. They were blacklisted. Gone. And this is what's going on with centralised exchanges, and in this instance, the WLFI. Now, Justin has come out and said his team has identified that the WLFI coin, or body that controls the coins, because they've still got this control, they were trying to say that it was a decentralised system. You know how you can control your own Zucoins? You can quite easily, people, blow your Zucoins up your own arse. You don't need anybody else to help you. You've just got to inadvertently or otherwise delete the bloody thing without backup, and that's gone. You've done that yourself. There's no blockages that can happen. There's no centralised third party. You are in and have full power over what you're doing. Even when you sell on Zutopia, it's completely in your hands. We keep saying it's like having a $100 note in your back pocket. Either you look after it or you don't. But that's your $100 until you do something with it. Now, Justin's son has said, get a load of this, you ready? That certain undisclosed anonymous people in the WLFI, that's the World Liberty Fund, embedded an undisclosed secret backdoor blacklist function in the smart contract from the very beginning without telling anybody about it. Now that's real naughty if that's the case. It's an allegation, but this means that that naughty little contract on those coins, remember, this bloke put $90 million in, it's surged in value to 175, and not we're pissing on now, but nevertheless he says that that little backdoor smart contract that wasn't exposed lets the team from WLF centrally to unilaterally freeze, restrict, or effectively confiscate any holder's tokens without notice, reason, or recourse, directly contradicting the written contracts of being a decentralised finance system. He also alleges rigged market governance votes, hidden fees, and treating the project like a personal ATM machine. He calls it a trap masquerading as an open door, and he is the largest victim. Now, to be fair, WLFI has responded today, and they say they reject this as baseless and accuse Son of playing the victim as usual and point to on-chain evidence of his transfers. They say we have contracts, we have the truth, and we'll see you in court. Boom! That is the nature of the case between the two parties because of the way that protocol was designed, and Dr. Zoo's been warning about this stuff. Dr. Do doesn't want his stuff frozen. It's been bad enough as it is with the wombats down at the banking system that can control every payment and question everything you're doing in any event. This is going on and on and on. Let alone going down the road where all of a sudden we're not flexible because we're going to get some people whinging about what Dr. Zoo said in terms of the Middle East issue. And the reason is clear. The last thing on earth you want is not to be in a position where you're going to have some bodies or people in certain jurisdictions pulling the strings, which makes it difficult to take advantage of such a wonderful product that's going to have extraordinary upside as we see it. Dr. Zoo's always said should be 20% of the value of Bitcoin. In fact, what's Bitcoin doing? I think it was taking a bit of a hammering earlier today. Let's just have a little squiz. And by the way, another exchange has hit the dust. You got the Winklevoss twins. That's the famous twins out of Social Network, the Facebook guys that banked a few bob because the idea that they had was stolen, they say, by the great Mark Zuckerberg. And their exchange called Gemini basically has been gutted and sold because they can't make any money. Another one. Imagine you had some stuff on that thing. Jeez, this is why it goes pear-shaped, because there was no forward-thinking vision. Here we go. Yeah, 71k US, and that's right, 71,063.34. So she's down this afternoon 0.87%, which is and Trump coin's gone down as well. Pump, what fancy calling a coin pump.fun, fair dinkum. And then the fart coin. The fart coin is now down another 1.7%. It's got a capitalisation less than the closing price of Zucoin, if you can believe it. That had a massive run up. I don't know if anybody knows about the fart coin, but the fart coin with the capitalisation value, what's it now? Oh shit! So it was touched on $1.90 and a huge cap, whereas it's at 10 cents now. So you almost give yourself a death knell calling it the fart coin, but there you go. It does nothing. This is what we're trying to do. You know, we're trying to say to you people, listen, the preparations and the stuff and all the boxes, it's been a tough, hard, long. It's been tough. It's been tough. I've got to tell you, it hasn't been an easy ride. But if you had an easy ride, everybody would be doing it. And look what they're doing, ripping people off. And now you've got this billionaire chasing another billionaire because of the, he says there was a secretly embedded, undisclosed backdoor blacklist in the smart contract. Well, bugger me dead. Imagine waking up to that thing. You think you got 175 million, you're going to cash your chips in, and some bugger freezes it and says that's the end of it. We do not want that. And that is why Dr. Zu and the team, all of the team, is all about making sure that we get the best opportunity possible, not only just to keep it going. That's why the nodes are designed they are. Once you people get your head on it and the open source goes out there and you start running your $105 a month nodes, you'll be thrilled. You'll be able to make money on the nodes. We've got an ingenious plan for that. It doesn't affect the increasing of coins and all that sort of dribble that goes on with trying to... I mean, imagine being a miner. You know, in order to keep your coins floating on Bitcoin right now, you want to transfer some Bitcoin. You need some poor bugger out there prepared to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and chew up electricity, write out a transfer for $88,000 to cover the cost of mining blocks so that you can get the glory of your transaction transferred, whether it's, a fraction of a Bitcoin or not, pay the huge fee, and then he wakes up and they find that they get a one Bitcoin earned worth 71,000. Who in their right mind sets up a business facing that brick wall that you're going to be down the toilet, $17,000 before you turn the machine on? Got to be kidding. I mean, it's just a crazy, senseless structure that wasn't thought through. There was no real basis upon which, again, it's a risk assessment decision. If you'd have said to someone that you're going to accumulate trillions of transactions and end up with the Great Wall of Bitcoin, you wouldn't have started the project. It's mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. Now, we've got a question here from who's listening, the benevolent habitant. It was in soft launch mode as advertised, so once it launches, it won't go offline. It was in the soft launch. I'm not quite sure what that means. But nevertheless, I'm sure there is good intent on that one. It's better than the last couple that went to bed early tonight. But fantastic. They're having a little bit of a kip. Maybe they're based in Mexico and it's the current sleep program, which we, when I did go to Dr. Zu, went to Mexico, we used to have a bit of a kip in the afternoon. It was quite pleasant, really. So you can always wake up and then re-listen to Dr. Zu, or just listen to Dr. Zu's voice late at night. And I'm sure that'll put you to... was answer the question above. Look, I think I need a bit of a kip myself, actually, looking at this, but... now, grateful Fancy Fan. Oh, Fancy Fan. I thought Fancy Fan went to bed. Wait a minute. Let's have a look. Let's go back a bit. Oh yeah, no, Fancy Fan, you've come back. That's an absolute pleasure to welcome you back on board to Dr. Zoo. See, that little kip that you had has put you back into a excitable mood. Let's see if we can deliver for Fancy Fan. Now, grateful being. That's all great, Alan, but how do we stop you from turning it off? Well, I can't turn it off once the nodes are all out and about. So any person that simply runs as I said, the 105, basically the maths suggests that a node running, and this is with capacity, it's just basically a computer. Our numbers suggest that a single node could handle 100 million wallets at $105 US a month. So if you've got a position in Zucoins, maybe not necessarily if you haven't got many, but if you've got a huge upturn in price and you are worried about your self-interests and your value of your coins, then it's not a big price to pay at 105 a month. But we do have a trigger mechanism that will make money as a result of being a node, and that's pretty exciting in itself. I won't go into that today, but that's an absolute crackerjack scenario for people to be incentivized to accelerate the capacity. And basically you don't even know it's running, you just plug it in. It'll plug into the back end of your WordPress or your website, and it'll bubble along behind the scenes and things will be happening, and that's the cost. It's not like the necessity of running a major ASIC type computer, cool infused thing running out in the middle of Texas with acres and acres of computers running to try and generate and earn a Bitcoin to cover an $88,000 electricity bill and cost per annum. That's never going to happen. And of course, the more nodes you have and the more that are pushing out that capacity, then we get excited, because there's no reason why on earth there couldn't be 4 billion wallet holders transacting globally across the entire program. That's the advantage we have with the structural design of, and it's getting better and better actually. There's a lot of bits and pieces that have been changed while we've been busy focusing on Zutopia. The great man is beavering away on some really good stuff, preparation later in the year with the quantum computing stuff, which gives and that's another advantage. You know, no one had their head on that stuff, and every single Bitcoin wallet could be in jeopardy of being attacked through quantum computing. Now imagine waking up to that. You just busted your ass, you got some coins, the price has gone through the roof, and then you wake up and it's gone. That'll be a hoot. That includes your bank details and stuff as well, so the banks are going to be having a great time with all that sort of bits and pieces. But anyway, now, Fancy, yeah, good on you, Fancy Fan, you're back. I finished sorting out my sock drawer and got bored. Well, I'm glad, and I hope those socks are in the right pairs there, Fancy Fan, because you don't want to have mixed socks in that drawer. That's a big no-no. That's especially whoever's going to put those socks on. That needs to be done properly, and we appreciate that you taking time to sort that out. That's a big one. Big one. Now, 5 o'clock. They want me to wrap up a bit earlier today, so we're going to do that. I don't think I've got much more. I just wanted to highlight today that even the big guys are playing with each other's money and back and forth, and taking on Trumpy. I don't know whether I'd take on Trumpy. He loves his court cases. Dr. Zoo loves court cases too, but the amount of court cases he's involved in is extraordinary. 78 years of age. Goodness me. Who'd have thought he could take on those challenges? But you love him or hate him, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that he's taken crypto to levels where the laws in the United States are conducive to what we want, and that's where we want to be. We've got a friendly environment there We have a friendly environment through Europe and our Asian friends, and that's why episode 62 was pretty hard-hitting. It took a few prisoners on the way through that episode, but nevertheless, that's how it is. That's what Dr. Zu needs to bring to your attention, and you love it or leave it with him as well, because the issues that we raise always have some hidden meaning or some impact that we want to be conscious of and be well aware of, because let's just stay focused with that. Now, once we get the Zutopia smashed out, our mission is we as a team in HQ are focused on accelerating mass adoption and productivity. Productivity being the tokens as well. So I would suggest that at that stage, that final delivery of the excitement and building up for the success of trading, because let me say this, the greater the trading, the greater the volume, and the more both tokens and Zucoins processed offline through Zutopia, and the quicker we can get Zucas with those products into Zutopia, the greater the volume of money Zutopia makes. Now that might think, oh well, who cares, that's just Dr. Zu's, but I've said it before that it gives some flexibility, that instead of the current reliance that these exchanges have, which we put up on ZuAI, it'd be 12 months ago, we talked about how the market makers are ripping people off. Market makers try and create liquidity, they pump and dump, they create wash markets. You've seen the Department of Justice certainly in terms of their actions against market makers. We highlighted that in a recent episode of Dr. Zu. Zutopia can make a lot of money from anonymous data of those that are hunting and collecting and building up their collections of Zu tokens and Zu vouchers that they then can place on Zutopia for on sale or trading. And as a result of that creates liquidity pools that can then be self-fulfilling in supporting or buying Zucoins, which then can be used as fractions for the expansion and growth of the merchant database. Probably don't want to get your heads on that just yet, but that's why there is a huge driver that we want Zutopia up ASAP, because we're selfish. We selfishly want to see that next thing Zutopia is trading hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion a day on its turnover, and that converts into massive database of significant value without jeopardizing the personal information by anybody that is part and parcel of the tokenization. It's all in the hands of the sovereign owner, but it doesn't mean to say that we can't use that data, because you will be communicating directly with merchants and they will be directly giving you value propositions. You do not need the nonsense of Facebook creating and the flood of artificial intelligence and advertising that's coming, which is why we decided to, put the skids on some of this Facebook crap, especially around Zucoins and the branding that was going on and tarnishing it. Dr. Zu has his views. You may not like them, but they're all transparent up in front. The information is transparent up front and has been so from day one. If you don't like Zucoins, well then don't buy them. If you do like it and you like the journey and the vision and what's happening, both short and long term, then buy them. Or sell them if you've got them and make a profit. It's up to you. But nobody's forced to buy Zucoins. Nobody is forced to sell. It is one of the great free market concepts that has never been replicated by any exchange. You've got brokers involved and custodial things, and that's all fair because that's about protecting investors and their monies. In this instance, you are protecting your own position in Zucoins or your own position in the way the money is moved in Zutopia directly. So on that happy note, people, it's been a fantastic afternoon. Stay with the plan. The bigger actions coming not that far away. Can't wait. I cannot wait to see the excitement with the trading, albeit whatever the price is, it's what you guys determine. And we just keep bubbling along with numbers, which is fantastic. We have had zero issue, which is extraordinary, everybody. Zero of download of a wallet. It's mind-blowing. I mean, we went through some grief there a little while back because people's understanding of 3 dots at the bottom of what Apple changed just blew us out of the water, and we had to get rid of that. Our mission in life, you'll know how successful Zucoins is the day when Dr. Zoo turns off the podcast and there is no support desk and it is out there and about because others are going to become gurus of Zucoins and specialists and developers, people, and one day there'll be university courses in Zucoins and SplitChain and on it'll go, and they'll think, gee, I wonder how that started. Sometimes these great businesses start from funny starts, and you only got to look back at my hero, the wonderful, the hugely, amazingly Steve Jobs that I talk about. And look, it's and that started in a garage, for God's sake. Even social media, whether you like him or not, but certainly starting in a university room. So you are here, you're part of the journey, and we're coming to the great stuff. So look out, everybody, and look forward to our next episode coming up Thursday. Cheers, everybody.